Welcome into the Press Row Show, the number one rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator, and west and east, and a bunch of other different countries and states, whatever. We're Rustless. We're Rustless again.
Wait a second.
We're Rustless in Philly.
Does that explain why we started on time today?
Right at 6:30.
Right at 6:30. We started on time because there's no Russ here. Intern Andrew filling in for Russ. I'm Anthony SanFilippo, joined by Adam Kimmelman from NHL.com.
Let's go, Adam.
Hi, guys.
Hey, good to have you back, Adam.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got a good amount of stuff to talk about today. And it starts with a little bit of controversy surrounding, well, the coach with a couple of different players. So let's dive in. Let's dive in, right? Because we haven't had a chance to talk since the game the other day when they lost to the Devils, when he benched Matvei Michkov for a section of the first period, like 9 minutes of the first period, came back out and played the second and third. But you guys, well, you weren't there, but it was one of them, I think it was Charlie O'Connor that asked him after the game about benching Michkov, and he cut off the question to basically say, well, you guys are at a disadvantage because I'm not going to tell you what this is about, but there's a lot more to this than just he didn't back check properly.
Right.
On this play.
And you can't listen, so this is where it gets a little inside baseball, right? Where you're talking about how we as the media operate, right?
Right.
Like, if you're going to do something and we're going to ask you about it, you can't say, I'm not going to tell you the answer, and you're now forbidden from asking further about it.
Right.
That's not how these things work. And you'd think someone who's been around as long as he has would understand that. However, he has his way of doing things. And look, whatever his reasoning was, he had it. And I'm not going to question his reasoning because there's no point. He saw something he didn't like. We can watch the game tape, and we can see where the breakdown was.
Right.
Was he deserving of being benched? Now, this is just me, in my opinion, no, because I don't think Matvei Michkov was the only person at fault on that goal, because if you go watch Owen Tippett, you'd be watching just like Owen Tippett was.
Yeah.
So if you're to just take one guy and blame him, I'm not sure if that's fair. But that's what he wants to do, that's fine. But the statement where I'm not going to tell you any reasoning behind my decision and don't ask me about it, well, that doesn't answer the question.
Right.
And that's not the appropriate way of dealing with it. You don't have to tell us. You don't tell us the blow by blow. We don't need the minutes of the conversation like it's a readout with the president talking to another world leader. But you can give us the general assessment of, I didn't like the way he played on that play. He needs to understand. He needs to be better. This is how I chose to do it. That's the end of it.
I'll go one further than that, Adam, because I think that the coach has a right to not answer the question at all if he really doesn't want to answer it. We're going to write what we're going to write, or we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about and say what we're going to say, but he has the right to not answer the question. So I don't begrudge that part of it, right? My problem is, don't ask me.
Right.
Then you don't respect our job then.
Right.
Because what is our job? Our job is to ask questions.
Right. We are
right?
we are the voice of the people who don't get to ask you those questions, who are sitting at home watching on TV or sitting in the stands watching the game, who are wondering the same things we're wondering. We have the opportunity to ask him that. If you are not going to if you're going to tell us we can't ask you that, well, then you're saying to your fan base they're not allowed to ask it either. And that's not part of what his job is. The job is you want to grow. Everybody talks about growing the game, growing the fan base, making the Flyers or any team as big and popular as you can. By saying to us, you are then saying to the fans, don't ask. Don't ask. You're not allowed to ask. You don't have the right to ask this question when we absolutely have it. You don't. To your point, he doesn't have to answer it. He can say, look, I have my reasoning. We did what we did. We're moving forward. That's it. And you guys can ask about it, but I'm telling you, I'm not going to answer it.
Correct.
Has anyone asked him if he saw or if he heard the Farabee quote from the other night?
No, and I don't really think there's reason to ask him that because, and I saw it, and I think you have to be careful with that stuff to put it in the proper context. Was Farabee saying it just for the effect of being able to say it? Did he really mean it? Because if he didn't really mean it, you're putting yourself and you're putting the coach in a really tough spot, I think, and I don't think it's fair. to say, hey, he said this, and I've seen it, but I'm pretty certain that John Tortorella has not seen it, nor would anyone go out of their way to show it to him.
Okay.
So I think you'd be asking him a really difficult thing out of context. And look, we all kind of saw how that relationship went, right? Was there some truth to it? I think so. I think you can, look at the play-by-play and then the time on ice and make your own judgment there. But no, I don't think there's.
Okay.
To me, now other people might feel differently, but to me, I don't see the value in that.
Okay. For whatever it was worth, he did laugh while he was saying
Exactly.
it. Granted, I don't know Joel Farabee. I don't know what his type of sense of humor is, so I have no idea if he was kidding or not. But whatever. I was just curious if maybe he wanted to respond to it or not.
So I mean, look, again, I don't have a problem with the coach not answering the question. I have a problem with the coach saying, "Don't ask me," because that's really what you guys are there all the time, right? I'm not down there anymore. You guys are there all the time. Regardless, I wouldn't be there. Let's be fair. If Torts wasn't here and it was another coach, because of the way that the things have changed with the Associated Press this year, I wouldn't be down there for the press conference anyway because of how quickly that stuff has to be out, right?
I didn't even think of that.
Right. No, I mean, it wouldn't matter who the coach
What about when the robots are writing?
I could technically go down when the robots are writing, right? That could. Yeah, I guess you're right. I could do that. But then in follow-up, there's more to this, and it has nothing to do with the Mishkov thing. Cam York gets benched the other Saturday, and he comes back and plays on Sunday. And then, today Torts is talking about, he's asked about Cam York and says a lot of glowing things about Cam York in his pregame press availability this morning. And you think, okay, well, all right, he's just trying to, it's just a one-game scratch, and he's just trying to mold a young player. But then, Adam, what happened when you guys talked to Cam York?
I'm not sure if Cam York quite saw it the same way. We talked to Cam, and he said, I don't think I deserve to be scratched. He said, he admitted that there are issues in his game from a consistency standpoint. He doesn't feel like he's gotten into the right kind of rhythm. And this goes back to November when he came back from the shoulder injury. And, he said he didn't understand, maybe he's starting to understand now what it means to take a month off and have to kind of rediscover what kind of game you want to play. And he said it's there, but it's not. He admits it's not there as consistently as it needs to be. But he feels there's far more good than bad in his game. So the question was asked, well, what does the coach want to see more from you? And his response, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, was, I don't know because he hasn't told me. We haven't communicated. So to me, that's
another problem.
Well, that left me kind of with the question, and I asked Cam this. I said, well, Brad Shaw, as we all know, has a huge amount of input in the defensemen, how they play, structure, ice time, all of that stuff. And I said, well, the message must come from Brad. How has that been when you've gone over video and worked with him? He said, it's been great. We watch all my shifts. We go over everything. It's good having that line of communication with him. So, it's not a really tough thing to draw that line of where the communication breakdown is when a player says, I don't know why I've been scratched. I'm talking to the assistant, but the guy who ultimately makes that decision is the head coach, and he's not giving a reason why.
And I'll reiterate this. Again, I don't have a problem with the scratching in and of itself. A coach is coaching, and that's fine. What I have a problem with is not explaining to the player why you're taking him out of the lineup.
And if you go back and you listen to what Cam York had to say, and you go back a year ago and you listen to what Sean Couturier had to say when he came out of the lineup, the messages are very similar.
You go further back. It happened with Morgan Frost until Morgan Frost approached him and said he wanted to talk to him about it. Because Torts wasn't telling Morgan Frost either why he wasn't coming out of the lineup.
But this goes back to what Torts has said numerous times, is he wants that conflict. He embraces that conflict because he believes the end product will be better on the other side. His belief, his opinion of that is that's a positive thing. I don't know if you flip that around, if the people on the other side of that argument feel quite the same way. Now, and this is just my opinion, I've never asked the guys, when he says he embraces the conflict, what do you guys think? But knowing Sean Couturier and knowing Cam York, I kind of tend to believe maybe they feel otherwise, and they feel the line of communication could be more open, and maybe you don't need that level of confrontation, that level of conflict.
And I get why he's doing it with York, because it's a lot of the same reasons he was trying to do it with Morgan Frost. It's not that Cam York is playing so poorly on the ice, right? I mean, if you look at his analytics, I mean, he's actually a pretty good player based on that data. It's the eye test that you're like, okay, something's not right with this guy right now. And he wants him to be more assertive on the ice. He wants him to be a little bit more of a, go be aggressive on the ice. And Cam's a little bit more of a laid-back kind of player. And so trying to create that conflict is hoping that he lights that fire. And I think that that's what Torts is going for.
Well, he saw it when they sent Cam back his rookie year. They sent him back to the American League to start the season, and he felt when York came back from Lehigh, I guess it was after a couple of weeks, they saw that chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And they liked the aggression, and they liked the attitude, and it carried over all of last season, where he was arguably their best defenseman for all 82 games last season. And you kind of saw it at the beginning of this season, and then he got hurt, and he hasn't gotten back to that level. And as Torts said this morning, the problem I have is if I saw it, I can see it again. And if it's not there, I'm going to beat that drum until you get back to that level. And he hasn't gotten back to that level. And whether it's the eye test or the analytics, he has not been the same player for now going on 3 months. And Cam, he admitted that it's not there as consistently as it was or as it needs to be. But in his mind, it wasn't to the point where he needed to be taken out of the lineup, whether it's one game or more. So he's in there tonight, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I part of it, and Bradshaw said this to us during the Carnival of all times. We had him on the show, and we were talking about the defensive unit, and he's like, they're reluctant to have all of York, Drysdale, and Andre in the lineup at the same time because they're three smaller defensemen, and they feel like that doesn't help them either, right? Because it's just they need to play with bigger guys on the other side. So with that reluctance, you kind of go, okay, fine. But when the reality comes down to it, these games don't really matter. Let's be honest. I mean, they matter, but they don't really matter, okay? And this is a time where you're evaluating. If you have a player in your lineup, like let's just say Igor Zamula, who Danny Briere listened to trade offers on at the deadline, ultimately didn't trade him. But I don't think that the Flyers look at him as a long-term defenseman.
Well, and part of that is why he's out of the lineup tonight. And Emil Andre is, and to your point, it is about evaluating and seeing what you have in some of these guys. That's why Ole Luxell is here. You need to evaluate and see what you have in him. That's why Jacob Pelletier, you could see get a little bit more ice time today, because Torres talked about it this morning. He was asked, what have you seen from him? And he's like, not enough to make an opinion. So, he talked about maybe moving him up in the lineup, talked about maybe playing him at center at some point. Probably not tonight, but maybe at some point before the end of the homestand, maybe you'll see Jacob Pelletier in the middle. So, you're right. This is a time where you need to evaluate what you have and see where it kind of lists in your future as we build towards 26, 27, 28.
Right, and so that's why I was like, finally tonight they're going to have all three of them in the lineup. I was just hoping that wasn't going to become a thing.
Well,
that they were going to take one of them out every game, just and not have them all in there together.
Right. No, and I think to your point, yes, you'd like to have. I mean, God, you'd like to have 3 6 foot, 6 foot guys, 6'5" guys who skate like the wind, who can play like Chris Pronger. But you don't. That's unrealistic. But I think you can survive with a small-ish top four.
Yeah.
If they're skilled enough. So if Cam York plays to his full skill, I think that's a guy that doesn't matter what size he is. And I think Emil Andre has shown that it doesn't matter his size. There's some toughness to him, some thick skin there that's not going to allow him to get pushed around. That I don't think it's an issue that he's 5'8" or whatever he is.
He's got a little chemo in him.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, do you wish he was 6 foot tall? Sure. But I think there's some real significant toughness to him that's going to get tougher the more he's up here, because I think you've seen, what he's done since he's been up here. So I'm not as hung up on how big they are or aren't on the back end if they move it well enough that you're not – the best defense is to play with the puck in the other team's zone.
Yeah.
And I think those guys especially are capable of really doing that. So I have no problem with playing those three guys.
So this brings me to this question. And I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'll make a statement first, and then you can kind of respond to my statement. Considering we've had so much turmoil between player and coach in the 3 years that Torts has been here, and you can ask any number of players that they've all had it, they've all experienced it. Are we looking at a fourth year of Torts or behind the bench, or is Torts' fourth year somewhere else in the organization, someone else is coaching? Because I think, this is why I said I'll make the statement and you can react. I think
professional.
Yes, that we're looking at John Tortorella eventually coming upstairs and being kind of like an advisor, and somebody else going downstairs and coaching that team. And I wonder if things go south in Pittsburgh with Sully, if it's a transition to his best friend, an opportunity for him to coach.
Well, gee, you have a chance to hire a two-time Stanley Cup champion.
Right.
Who would pass on that opportunity? But
Yeah.
that's a long way down the road.
Yeah.
So here's my feeling. You look at a calendar, right? He's 66 years old. He's the oldest coach in the league. At some point, no matter who you are, it's a long season. It's a long season for the players. It's a long season for a 66-year-old guy to get on the plane, to fly. Like, let's go back to the way they started the season, right?
Yeah.
4 games in 6 nights, Seattle to Calgary to Edmonton to Vancouver, fly cross-country, day off, home opener against Ottawa. Just me telling that makes me tired. And I'm not in my mid-to-late 60s.
Right.
Now imagine if you are with 30 years plus experience doing that for 82 games a year,
Yeah.
for 30 years. It's going to wear you off, whoever you are. So at a certain point, even John Tortorella is going to throw the white flag and say, I can't do this anymore. It's time to pass the torch to someone younger. Whether that's this season, next season, I don't know. I can't say for sure. But I have to think that at some point, yes, the eventual destination for him is a seat next to the general manager. When that happens, I don't know. But I think that's the eventual landing spot for him whenever he's done behind the bench.
Do you think it would be in this organization, and you wouldn't
do.
go back to like a Columbus or Tampa or anything, the Rangers?
I think I'll go back to something, and I dug this out for one of the other writers who had asked me a question. Dan Hilferty said when they hired Keith Jones and they made Danny Briere the full-time GM, John Tortorella is our spiritual leader. I don't believe he's going to work for another NHL organization as long as Torts wants to be here. As long as he wants to be here, I believe he will have a job with this franchise. Now, to your point, he could decide to say, like a lot of other people, I'm going to go live in Florida and be a snowbird and work down there, because I'm sure, somebody would want to have his institutional knowledge in their organization in an advisory role. But knowing what they think of him at the ownership level here, assuming that opinion still holds, then yeah, I think he will be here.
So Tony Louie left us a comment just a second ago I thought was pretty interesting. Please note to recycled coaches, we need a young coach with bright new ideas, not these old guys that keep getting passed around.
So how was
It's a well-known thing in the NHL that it's basically just the same 32 guys that are recycled. for the most part. There are some exceptions. The Flyers got Haxtell from the University of North Dakota.
Sure.
Are there any new younger guys that you think might be on the precipice of getting a head coaching job in the National Hockey League?
I mean, top of my head, that's a tough question. Look, I'm sure there's the American Hockey League has a lot of good young coaches, just like it has a lot of good young players. There might be one that fits what this organization is looking for. But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with bringing in a guy who's experienced. Look, Pete DeBoer is on his 5th team.
Yeah.
Guy's been to the Stanley Cup final how many times? Peter Laviolette's another one. Like Mike Sullivan.
even Chief is on his 3rd team now?
Sure. But that's the thing. So, you say recycled coaches, but these are guys who have had success. You're not going to find a John Cooper everywhere you look, right? Like that's the unicorn, okay? Finding that guy, right? More often, it doesn't work out. Like, there's a litany of guys, fresh, quote-unquote, fresh young coaches who come up and don't succeed. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But I don't think retread or not, like, look, there are a certain segment of the fan base wants to lock in, oh, this guy again. Well, remember when they hired Alain Vigneault? The excitement at the fan base when they hired him? The Flyers were his fourth team. Montreal, Vancouver, the Rangers. Got fired from all three of them, right? So, he was a quote-unquote retread, and everybody got super excited when he came in. I think it just depends who the guy is. And if they win, it's great. You know what?
But here's the difference with Philadelphia fans. They got excited for Vigneault because he was from outside the organization.
Well, so was Tortorella.
Yeah, I understand that. But that's why I think they got excited for Tortorella originally, right? Let's be honest.
Sure.
Every time that they've gone, it's when they bring people back who've been here before that this fan base goes crazy.
But they got all excited when Keith Jones and Danny Briere came back in their front office roles.
Yeah, but let's keep in mind, well, some did. Some people did not. We have some trolls in here who think it's the worst thing ever. But the reality of it is that was just because the franchise was in complete and utter failure at that point.
Sure.
And they needed somebody to bring it back to where it was before, and they came in with that message.
Look, it doesn't – I think people get way too hung up on where they worked before or who they were before or what last name they have. If they win, it's all irrelevant.
Yes.
If they lose, it's all irrelevant. You can find if they come in and they're the wrong choice, it doesn't matter where they worked before, whether they played here, whether they worked here, it doesn't matter. All that matters is winning.
Yes.
If they win, it's a great decision. If they lose, it was a bad one, and you'll find somebody else.
That's the problem. They're not winning.
Yeah. Well, no, and listen, look, I've done this since 2002. I've ridden the wave for when they were really good, to when they were really bad, to then when they were really good again, and now it's, you hope they're building it back the right way, but these things go in cycles. And is Danny Briere the right choice? Is Keith Jones the right choice? I don't think it's quite time to make that decision one way or the other, but, this is going to be their third draft.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be their third draft. It'll be a third offseason. They've targeted the 26-27 season as the time to start competing to get back to the playoffs. Well, I think this is a big offseason for them as they start kind of putting those plans into place. And look, the foundation is here with Michkov. That's going to be kind of the sun that everything orbits around, right? We've seen, to me at least, I've seen enough this season to know that this kid is the real deal. That barring injury or anything really bizarre happening, he looks like he is going to be a dynamic franchise player for a very long time. I'm just hoping he learns the language. He's able to make the adjustments to his game that he needs to make as far as becoming a more committed. I don't need him to be, a Selke Trophy winner every year, but just being a more committed defensive player to open up that segment of the game to turn that defense into offense. But everything's going to revolve around him, and then you've got 3 number ones this year, 4 second-round picks. Then you've got a first-round pick next year. You've got 2 in 27, so you can continue to build up that prospect pipeline. Jet Luchenko probably has a pretty good chance of being here next year. Maybe Oliver Bonk. So you can kind of see the pieces being put together from that end. But then what do you do during the offseason? How do you address the lack of a number one center? How do you address, as much as we like Travis Sanheim and he's a really good player, I think he's a really good second pair guy. I still think they need a true number one pair defenseman. How do you address those two issues? That, I think, needs to be examined a bit this summer. So that's all kind of part of what happens moving forward.
Win the lottery.
Well,
trust me, we'll do the Tankathon post game. Don't even worry about that, folks.
As someone who covers the draft, the top 4 picks, possibly top 5, look to be franchise type players.
Yeah, but there's only one of them that's a defenseman.
Correct. And he is and I've seen him live, I've seen him on video, he is a very special player.
Yeah.
And Matthew Schaefer, who we're talking about, plays for the Erie Otters. He should be coming back in the lineup relatively soon, hopefully. I've read where he has begun skating after recovering from the broken collarbone he sustained at the World Juniors, so that's a good sign. When he's up to speed, if you get the chance to watch him, or if you go back and you watch what he was the first, October, November, December, you will see a dynamic skater who takes the puck up the ice like you dream about. Big, strong, block shots, can play on the penalty kill, can play on the power play. He is an all-situation player. If you can get him, that's fantastic. But there's only one of them, and you're going to have to – I shouldn't say this, but I would assume – we did our mock draft at NHL.com, myself and Mike Morreale, my colleague. He was the number one guy in both of our mock drafts.
Yeah.
And that was –
Ahead of Hagens?
Ahead of Hagens, ahead of Martone, ahead of Misa. Those are the big four, and I think you can put Roger McQueen, the big forward from Brandon, who's just coming back in the lineup. I think you would put him ahead of all of those guys. He is that good, that dynamic.
Yeah, really think so. We only have 5 minutes left with you, Adam. I want to get to the game tonight. This Ottawa team is an interesting team. They're clinging to a playoff spot. They probably still should be better than they are, and they're not. They're kind of up and down. They went like 1-5-1, and now they've won 3 straight. They're a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. What can you tell us about where the Senators are right now as they come into this game? Coming off of it's a weird one. They played at home last night, flew down here just for this game, and then fly back home for another game on Thursday. So it's kind of a weird travel thing for them. Where are the Senators at this point?
Well, they're coming, as you said, they're coming off the second game of a back-to-back where they probably feel like they stole 2 points because their goalie had to make 48 saves, including 27 in the second period.
You see how that game ended, by the way?
I didn't see all of it, but I heard Detroit scored right after the buzzer.
Yeah. So they played great defense for exactly 60 minutes.
Well, I don't know if they played great defense, but the goaltending kept them in the game
he was the
for
first
exactly 60. He could have been all 3 stars.
He was the first star of the game.
He probably could have been all 3 stars. But so you have that effort and you win, and you don't feel great about it. Now you got to get on a plane, fly down here 2 hours, get back into a game tonight. I think there's going to be some real anger in this Senators group, and they're a team that when they get the anger going and their captain Brady Tkachuk's going to lead the charge, they can be a very difficult team to play against. And when Claude Giroux comes in here, he's certainly going to be motivated to remind the fans what they had for 15 years when he was here. I think the Senators team is really, really good. I think Anton Forsberg, as far as backups go, is going to has a chance to have a really good game. But, it's a game that the Flyers are capable of winning because, one, they're catching a team traveling on the back end of a back-to-back, using their backup goalie, and there should be some real anger in that group as well after how they've played the first 4 games of the homestand. They've scored 1 goal total in each of the last 3. So, you'd have to think, just on the pride factor alone, the Flyers are going to want to come out fast, hit them in the mouth a little bit, so to speak, and kind of push the pace and try to really take this game over in the first period and grind them down. It's something that, when we talked to Travis Sanheim after the, I believe it was the Calgary game, the Seattle game, he said what we have to do is we have to get back in the habit of better puck possession, better forecheck, and really wear teams down in their defensive zone. They haven't done it. Time to start doing it.
They were a little bit better against Jersey.
Little bit, but not enough. Not enough.
I agree. And I'll tell you what, if they don't win this one tonight, this might be one of those 10-game losing streaks that we've grown accustomed to. Because the schedule is really brutal.
That's going to be tough for me.
Tampa and Carolina coming in next are teams that are playing well.
Yeah.
Especially Tampa. It doesn't get easier.
Is it crazy to me? And this last thing I'll ask you before we say goodbye. Tampa. Talk about Tampa. Are they back to being a Stanley Cup team?
I don't think they ever were. To me, they were never not a Stanley Cup contender. Because when you have losing Stamkos was a huge blow for them. Kucherov's still a top 5 player in the world. Vasilevsky's still we did our Vezina Trophy tracker for the 3/4 point of the season. It's going to come out Thursday. He was my number 2, right behind Hellebuck. And it wasn't a tough decision, but it was easy to put him at number 2 because there was nobody even close. He's healthy, and he is as good now as you could want a goalie to be. When you have that, you have Hedman, assuming he's healthy, They're deep offensively. They have just enough on defense. Yeah, they were never not a cup contender.
Watching them set up a power play is so aesthetically pleasing, especially given what we have to watch here.
Well, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, at Braden Point in the middle on that power play is just evil.
Well, he defines the bumper position.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I mean, I saved my pick for the playoffs for the end of the season, but right now I'm leaning Dallas-Tampa Stanley Cup Final.
I have a hard time picking against the Winnipeg Jets, but I 100% could see that happening because Dallas is I believe they jumped past Minnesota, so they're second in that division. They're going to have a really good chance.
Yeah.
It's absolutely possible. Ottinger is good enough to get them. A lot of it will depend on if Miro Heiskanen's healthy or not. If he's not there, as good as Thomas Harley is, having both of those guys, it makes a huge difference.
Makes a difference. Adam Kimmelman, thank you once again for being on the pregame show with us.
My pleasure.
We'll get you again before the end of the season. I can promise you that.
Absolutely. Good to have you on, Andrew.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that.
Good stuff. Adam Kimmelman, NHL.com. Be sure you read him there.
What a guy.
Yeah, he's the best. All right, we got to get the picks out.
So
I know Russ isn't here, but he sent a text over. I saw it come in while we were talking to Adam. I will give you my pick first since you're digging that up. But my pick for the game is I'm going with Ottawa. I got them 4-2 in this game. I do think the Flyers will play a better game, and I really think that 4 is an empty netter. That's why I think it's a close game throughout. But like Adam was saying, I think I think Ottawa looks at it and says, we were lucky last night. We didn't play our best game. We got to go out there and play our best game tonight because they're in the throes of a playoff race with 5 teams within like 4 points of each other for those last 2 spots. They can't afford to lose games to bad teams.
So Bundy went Flyers 4-3. Russ went Senators 3-1, and I'm sticking to my guns. Pick the Flyers till they win. 3-2 Flyers again.
You're nuts.
I am nuts, but I'm too committed.
This is what happens. You shouldn't have said that out loud. You could have had that thought in your head.
But I'm too honest of a person.
Yeah, but you didn't have to say it out loud.
No,
that wouldn't be that you were lying. Like you could have had that thought in your head, and then at some point said, you know what? I can pull off of this thought and not. I didn't put it out into the world. I can put it all, come off the thought, and now unfortunately you're stuck with it.
Maybe they'll win. Who knows? Maybe they'll win. The other thing is we have 2 minutes to kill. Well, I was going to bring it up to Adam, but I forgot. And there's no real natural segue to this. But the elephant in the room, just in the hockey world, the NHL handed down a 20-game suspension to Aaron Ekblad, who gave a interesting statement regarding how or why it happened. I don't know. I'm trying to remember this happening in the past, and I'm sure it has, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I forget what the last time. It has happened a few times, not many.
So is 20 just like the precedent that's been set?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you don't get a lot of PED kind of situations, right, in hockey. It just doesn't really happen. But I think this is interesting. There's something to take into consideration, right? This is not something that happens overnight. It's not like a test happens and like the next day he's suspended. You get a test. If you fail that test, you have to take it. They need a B sample. That's a couple days later, right?
Yes.
You take that test, and by the time that test is done, okay, then they're going to tell you, all right, listen, you're going to be suspended. Then there's going to be an appeals process, and so you go through all that. And once that gets done, then the suspension gets handed down. Okay? So think back now. Let's go back several days and figure out, okay, there was an appeal, there was a B sample, there was an A sample. When did Seth Jones just get traded to Florida?
It's interesting. That makes you wonder.
Might Florida have known that this was coming and quietly pulled off a move to get Seth Jones in there? Now, look, Ekblad can come back for Game 3 of the first round of the playoffs, but they're in a dogfight for the division. They're in a dogfight for home ice, right? You want to make sure that you have the best possible matchup. You'd rather win that division and play one of the wild card teams and not have to play Toronto or Tampa in the first round, because then if you do have to play one of those 2 teams and you don't have Ekblad for those 2 games,
right,
that's a tough loss for Florida, right? So that's a tough thing to overcome.
Yes.
So we're about ready to hit the anthems.
Bundy will be here.
Bundy will be here for first intermission, and then we'll take it from there. So thanks for joining us for the pregame press row show, and we'll see you at first intermission.
Oh boy. There we go. All right. We are back live in the Press Row Show, which, according to my sources, is the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show. A little peek behind the curtain here for you folks, fine folks watching at home. We went off the air pregame. Lauren Hart came out to honor America and Canada for the singing of the two countries' national anthems. And after she was done singing, I went over to the press box to get a tubular meat because I was hungry. By the time I got back here, the Senators had already scored a goal and Nick Seeler had already taken a penalty.
Yeah, 32 seconds.
That took him 32 seconds for all of that to happen. Quick stat on that goal, by the way. That goal was scored by Brady Tkachuk, because of course it was, and it was assisted by Claude Giroux, because of course it was. Brady Tkachuk, now the 5th player in Senators history to have scored in the opening 30 seconds of a game twice in their career. So congratulations to Brady Tkachuk. I'm very happy for him.
That might be an AP stat tonight.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Hello, Bundy. Welcome to the program. We missed you.
Yeah, good to see you guys. That was slow burn first period.
Slow burn, huh?
That was a slow burn. Yeah, I mean, it was final shots in the period were 6-5 for Ottawa, but there wasn't a lot going on. It was a lot of chess match being played, especially in the middle of the ice. I think the Flyers, I wanted them to be more assertive in the middle of the ice, and I think they have. They certainly checked harder in this game than we've seen them in any of the previous 4 games here at home on this 7-game homestand. So they're doing a lot of good things tonight. Fell down that deficit early with that little tic-tac-toe play. One-timer over to Brady Tkachuk. But the Flyers are not in bad shape. They are checking, and this is a battle, this hockey game tonight.
I got to think that Ottawa even has kind of tightened things up after yesterday.
After giving up 27 shots in one period?
They got 49 in the game, 27, which is a franchise record against in the second period. Still won the game, believe it or not, 2-1. Goaltending was outstanding yesterday. In that period, they gave up 5 shots. Flyers got 5. And really, I think they had 4 in the first 8 or 9 minutes.
Yep.
And then 1 the rest of the period.
Yeah.
So Ottawa's really kind of closed it up there defensively as well.
Forster had that one chance on the breakaway, and then not a whole lot after that, I don't think.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, there was a chance. Owen Tippett had a chance, but chose to pass the puck instead of take the shot, which I thought was an odd thing when they had kind of a little bit of a rush going there. Power play. They had a power play in there.
Yeah, I missed that one. I was downstairs.
You didn't miss anything. Did not look good. Yeah, I mean, that's the period right there. I mean, there's nothing else to really describe that period. It was 20 minutes of hockey that we will never remember.
So speaking of the power play.
Yeah.
When we were here Saturday, that was the game that was on ESPN, right?
Yes.
Apparently, ESPN put a graphic up during the game. It was the Flyers' power play the last 4 years, and it gave the percentage and where it ranked in the NHL. The previous 3 years before this year, they were last, all 3.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, ESPN, they didn't put 31st or 32nd. They actually wrote out the word last, which is, I don't know why, is so much more demoralizing to read. Now, granted, to the Flyers' eternal credit, they've drastically improved the power play this year. They're up to 29th.
Oh, that's a big step.
That's a top 30 power play we're talking about. So they're really rolling on all cylinders. I can't believe they didn't score tonight.
Big step forward to be up to 29 now. You know what? I asked Bundy this question, and I don't know the answer to it, and I may have to really dig to find the answer. So the Flyers are in the middle of a 7-game homestand, right? These are rare. 7-game homestands don't happen all that often in hockey in general, not just in Philadelphia, but in general. For the sport, they don't happen that often. There's a very real chance, if the Flyers don't figure out a way to come back in this game, that they lose all 7 games of this homestand and do so in regulation possibly. And I wonder if that has ever happened in the NHL before.
You have to find 7-game homestands,
Which are
rare.
Yeah, right?
Super rare.
They are rare, right?
Usually you see a team with a homestand like that, or a homestand if there's like building construction going on somewhere else and someone's got to travel for all those games or be on the road for a certain amount of games. But that's an awful lot of home games. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So, like, I'm just curious if that – I'm sure teams have lost 7 straight games at home, but they've been on the road in between. But I'm not certain that any team has ever lost 7 straight games, 7 in a row, and all 7 been in their home arena.
And in regulation, which would be really that would be a rough road homestand.
Yeah, I mean, this game is the only game in my mind that has a chance of preventing that because of the way Tampa's playing. They've been great for a long time, and we talked about them a couple months ago, Bundy.
Playing well right now,
and they're playing really well right now. And then Carolina on Saturday, who the Flyers struggle against.
Yeah.
This could get bad. Like tonight is the only night to if you want to prevent the history, the bad history.
Still a lot of hockey left.
There's a lot left, and the way the Flyers are playing, I mean, they could definitely get one on Forsberg. I mean, this Ottawa team is not great defensively. I mean, you can see, I don't see how a team gives up 27 shots in a period, but you could just tell the way their system is. They're not super hard defensively. That's where I think the Flyers have to really keep working the Ottawa Senators into the offensive zone and try to get to the middle of the ice.
Yeah. And to answer a couple people's questions, wondering where Russ is. Russ is in New York for work. So he'll be back on Thursday, replacing me as I leave tomorrow to fly to Clearwater for a week of spring training baseball.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, be a good time.
Out in the sun, yeah.
Be a good time. So why don't we throw it to intern Andrew?
Yes.
For his stat of the night.
So do you guys think that Ottawa's enjoying Dylan Cousins?
I think they like the size up front, yeah.
He had the winning goal last night, I think, with like 5 minutes left.
He did, yeah.
So 3 games that he's played with the Senators, he has gotten at least a point in all 3. You know, the Senators' record for most consecutive games with at least a point to start their career with Ottawa was Danny Heatley in 2005. He did it in his first 22 games with the Senators.
22 in a row,
Yes.
huh?
22 games with a point.
Yeah.
Straight games.
To start his Senators career, correct.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. That's crazy.
I know I normally make it about the Flyers, but here's the thing. The Flyers haven't been generating a whole lot of stats lately. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good...
The other one, by the way, when you said Forsberg, I thought I'd recognize that name, and I did recognize it.
Peter?
Anton. No. Anton Forsberg, the Senators goalie.
The Flyers didn't draft him.
He has the same birthday as me. That's the other stat of the night.
he wasn't drafted, absolutely, by the Flyers. That's a good. I can't believe Danny. Now, granted, remember, Danny Heatley wasn't a rookie with Ottawa. He was with Atlanta first, right? And then went to Ottawa, and then in his first 22 games with the Senators,
he recorded
at least 1 point.
That's unbelievable.
22 consecutive games, yeah. And the next year was the famous 50-07, right?
Yes.
That was him, Danny All-Star Heatley.
Yes.
All-time Twitter account.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy.
So what? And then they went to the Stanley Cup the next year, right?
The Senators?
Was that then they lost to the Ducks?
07, they lost to the Ducks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Heatley on that team?
Wasn't it the big 3? It was like him, Spezza, and Alfredson.
Yes.
Yeah. They were all in line together, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much. I mean, things changed throughout the season, but pretty much they played a lot together. Yeah, good stuff there.
I tried to find what the Flyers' record was. I couldn't find it, though.
For most consecutive points to start a season?
To start their Flyers' career.
Flyers' career.
Yeah.
Huh.
Interesting.
It's a good question. I bet you Meltzer would know it.
Couldn't find it. Yeah, maybe I'll talk to Bill.
Yeah,
I see him.
Bet you Meltzer would know it. I thought I saw a question that I wanted to get to. And Bundy, I want to get your take on a couple things we talked about pregame as well. But there was a question. Oh, yeah. So kind of related to that. So I'll bring up the question because then it brings up what we talked about pregame in a different light. So Flyers Purgatory asks, what do you guys think of Pronger's comments? And Pronger's comments, if anybody missed them, he went on Nasty Knuckles, our friends Derek and Riley, on their show, and talked about why players don't particularly like playing for John Tortorella. And then earlier today, at the pregame media availability, Torts was asked about benching Cam York.
Right.
And had a lot of good things to say about Cam York in his availability. Talked about, what he likes in his game. There's some inconsistency, but, he's hoping to find it back. He's working really hard to get it again. And Torts referenced, his York's rookie year when they sent him down to the Phantoms, and then he came back, had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and he wants him to get back to playing that way again. And talked about a few of the things that he feels that York needs to do to be that player again. Okay, fine. Simple comments, typical of a coach, typical coach speak. Then the media goes downstairs to the locker room, and they ask Cam York about the situation. First thing York says is, well, I don't think I've played bad enough to be scratched.
Okay.
Which, as a player, ever think that they've played bad enough to be scratched? It's
right. Nobody's ever thought they were bad enough to be scratched.
Right. So that's first and foremost. But then when he was asked the follow-up question was, well, what has the coach told you that you need to do to be better and stay in the lineup? And he says, I don't know. I haven't talked to him.
Yeah.
And then the follow-up question to that was, well, have you talked with Brad Shaw? He's in charge of the defense and everything. And he spoke glowingly of the communication he has with Brad Shaw about how they go over video and look at everything over and over again, but that there's been no communication between York and Tortorella. This echoes back to Sean Couturier at the end of last year when he was scratched, said the same thing. This harkens back to the beginning of last year when Morgan Frost was first benched and said the same thing.
Yep.
He later confronted Torts, and Torts talked about how he welcomed that, right? And that kind of felt like it broke the ice a little bit. And maybe that's what he's hoping for here, but I don't think Cam York is that kind of player who's going to go in there full of fire and brimstone and start yelling at Torts about his playing time and communication.
Yeah, I agree with that. So you're just asking me what my thoughts are on the whole situation. Yeah, I mean, again, it's weird that he would say, like, Torts doesn't talk to him, because the impression I get is that Torts is always talking to players, right? Like, that's what I would have thought.
Yeah.
And, I mean, why would he say the coach doesn't talk to him if he's not talking to him? So, Torts may be a guy who delegates authority down the aisle, where he says, I'm not really going to worry about this guy. I'm going to leave this to Brad Shaw to deal with the player. And when it's a decision to scratch somebody, I'll be the guy who makes that call. But I find it strange that they don't talk. I find that odd. The same with Coots, because when the head coach makes those hard decisions, it's always easier to look at the coach in the eyes and have him talk to you and tell you that rather than somebody else. I always appreciated the head coach letting me know how I was playing or what I could do better, or if he wasn't going to play me, why he wasn't going to play me, and how I get back in the lineup as quick as possible.
I would think.
That should be how it goes. But again, there's a lot of players and coaches that don't get along, and they don't talk at all. It's not uncommon. I mean, you're not going to be able to have one coach who gets along beautifully with 23 players. It just doesn't happen. So, again, it's a matter of Cam York believing how he plays. I will say one thing. I think Torts is right about how he's played. I think there's times he's been good, but I do think there's another gear there that we saw a little bit of last year, playing with that chip on his shoulder, that I don't think we've seen this year. So, I kind of give kudos to both sides. If he's that upset about it, I'd love to see John talk to him more about it. But at the same time, he's got to believe in himself and go out and play hockey when he's issued the opportunity to get back out on the ice.
And that's exactly what I said pregame, Bundy. He's like, I don't necessarily have a problem with him scratching the player.
Right. He's got to talk.
I have a problem with the lack of communication.
Right. If that's really what's going on. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that to me is the issue. I'm fine with scratching a player who's not playing well. That's the coach's prerogative, and he should do it, to help the player. I mean, that's the idea. It's a young player, still young player who's trying to, figure out his game. And, but the lack of communication thing is where you lose me. Like there should be that talk should be had.
Well, how's he supposed to know what he needs to improve on then?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that Torts gives that authority to the defensive coach, Brad Shaw, to tell him the things he does. So he delegates the authority and runs it down the line. But I think most of the time, to be honest with you guys, if you're a player, you need the head coach to be the guy communicating with you. Otherwise, you kind of feel like you're left in limbo. That's how I look at it. It doesn't mean it's the same for every player, but that's how I would have felt about it.
B Rad is Rad asked you a question, Bunny. How many times were you scratched in your career?
Well, my third year, I was scratched 9 games out of like 14, and it ended up turning my career around. Like I was the different player coming out of that scratching because I knew my life was on the line for it. So probably in my whole career, I've probably been scratched maybe 15 times, including the 9 games. And then the other ones were, a couple of them were dumb, like where I was coming back off of injury and they left me out of the lineup one more game when I was ready to play, which I counted as a scratch. But I never was scratched for a playoff game. And I think any player, if you're in a rut and you want to get a young guy in, you're gonna sit a guy on the end of the bench sometimes or put him in the press box. Not much after the years I was a veteran did I ever get scratched.
Okay. Somebody, I don't know who mentioned it earlier, but I thought it was worth mentioning, Bundy, since we've talked about it on this program before. Non-hockey story, but really good and exciting news for the Therien family today.
Yes.
Your future son-in-law signed a really nice contract in the NFL.
He did. He signed with the Minnesota Vikings for 5 years. Will Fries, and Penn State alum, so we know he's got that in common with Andrew. But my daughter gets married in June, and I'm certainly happy for the both of them. I was hoping that they'd be back on the East Coast, like in maybe New York or New England. But it didn't happen. They're going to Minnesota, and I did tell them what a beautiful place Minnesota is. It's a great Twin Cities, and that's where their life will be taking place for the next 5 years. We're pretty excited for them both.
And that's a great contract for him, and great contract for your daughter. And it's really exciting, and hopefully doesn't cost you as much on the wedding now.
Hopefully he can fly me out to a game. I mentioned that to him today. I said, it's funny. He had his cell phone today was not taking any more in calls, right? And my daughter I was on the phone with the two of them, just congratulating them and seeing how they feel. And he said, I need to get a new phone. I said, you got enough money now, you can go get a new phone.
That's right. You can buy a few phones.
Yeah, but
a few of them.
Super good guy, and they're good people, and I'm super proud of my daughter and love her to death, and happy for the both of them.
Yeah, it's great.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think his first big purchase is going to be now?
Well,
car?
He's an offensive lineman. He's, if he's
truck.
looking for something, he's going to be looking for a nice pickup truck.
Yeah.
Truck.
Yeah.
It's a truck.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's pretty simple guy.
We only have a minute here, and I wanted to take a minute for a personal note because I'm sure they're watching over in the hospital tonight. I spent my entire day prior to coming in here at Lankenau Hospital just outside of Philadelphia. My dad called me this morning at about 20 after 7 and told me he was having a heart attack.
Oh, my goodness.
And asked me to drive him to the hospital. Rather than call 911 and rather than call an ambulance, asked me to drive him to the hospital, which I did. Got him there, and
You're a hero.
Yeah, I'm a hero today.
Not all heroes wear capes.
And he's doing fine. He's in recovery. Had to get a few stents put in, but he's feeling great. Looks good. He's telling jokes in the hospital now. Everybody's laughing along with him, and they said they're going to probably send him home tomorrow.
Good.
So it's all good news, but it was a crazy day for me, but I want to shout out my dad, who's sitting there in the hospital with nothing better to do than to watch the Flyers game tonight and watch us on his phone on YouTube. So love you, Dad, and hope all's going well, and see you soon.
Prayers for your dad, and glad he's doing great, Anthony.
Yes, that's a relief.
Super stuff.
Yeah.
All right, players are back on the ice. We'll be back in just a little bit. All right, so significantly more, I would say, to break down in the second intermission as opposed to the first intermission. This is the Press Row Show, and I'll let you guys decide where you want to start. 4 goals were scored. We had Jamie Drysdale basically tackling a guy because he didn't have a stick. No penalty shot was awarded. Michkov tried the Michigan again. Anthony, I'll start with you this time. Where do you want to begin?
Well, you said there's a lot more to break down. You said your sentence wrong. You should have just said there were a lot of breakdowns that period, because my goodness was that bad defense by both teams.
As you said, Anthony, Hitch used to call it a track meet. I mean, it was a breakaway fest for a while.
Ottawa is trying, and Bundy, they must see something, right, on tape, because they are trying one home run pass after another another.
And 3 of them worked.
Yes, they did.
One of them's hard to work. 3 of them is usually you're doing them a favor.
Right? 3 times. And look, that's the thing. Ottawa's had 3 breakaway opportunities that period. Fedotov stopped all 3. But here's the problem. There's a weak shot from the half wall that's along the ice, and it gets through the 5-hole for a goal.
You can't give goals like that up.
Right?
They're back-breaking goals. Like, the Flyers are playing a good game tonight.
Yeah.
Listen, forget the standings. They're 8 points out. But, again, you have to keep trying to climb and keep trying to make some hay out of it as dire as the situation seems, but you can't give up a goal like that when you've been fighting all game to stay in the hockey game. Fedotov made some really good saves, but those are the ones that just can't go in because everything else is forgotten that you've done with the good because of one bad goal, and that's a bad goal.
It is.
So that was right after. I want to talk to you about the Drysdale thing in just a second, but he broke his stick, which led to a breakaway. There was a penalty called. The Flyers killed that penalty. And it seems like they have the momentum, and immediately after the guy gets out of the box, Fedotov gives up that goal, and then all the momentum was just gone.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what happened. The Flyers actually did a great job on the kill. They had a couple chances of their own, as a matter of fact, knocked down a Giroux pass, went the other way. I mean, the Flyers were not bad. Don't get me wrong at all. There were some breakaways, but it was because of there were a lot of shorthanded breakaways too, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So Drysdale, I don't know for the life of me why that wasn't a penalty shot.
That's what I was going to ask you next.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like he just grabbed him on the back, and if the player, I know the player got the shot off, but it wasn't the full shot, so I was just kind of wondering myself, what does it take to get a penalty shot?
Yeah, to me, it's a clear penalty shot because my interpretation of the rule is if a player has the puck behind the defense and is impeded in any way, whether he gets the shot off or not, it's a penalty shot.
Right, and that's what I'm thinking. Why was the ref judging? Was he judging it because he got the shot off?
I don't know. Unless he thought that he wasn't behind Drysdale, but my goodness, look at the replay. He's a full stride behind Drysdale.
Definitely was.
And credit to Drysdale because he knows I can't let the guy take the penalty, clear shot. I mean, you got to take the penalty there. So I give him credit for doing it the way he did it, but I was stunned it wasn't a penalty shot.
Yeah.
A thing about Drysdale, I will go this way. Looking for positives, and I think it was Tony Louis who mentioned it. But it's not just tonight, and it's not just because he scored a goal, and it's not just because he scored a goal in the last 2 games. But I think there's been some encouraging offensive play from Jamie Drysdale of late.
There's no doubt about it. He's getting up in the play, making smarter decisions offensively. He's not going when it's not there. He's picking and choosing his spots much better. That was a nice goal he got. Just didn't drop an ounce of speed. Came across the middle, went on his backhand, and ended up getting it. It was probably a bad goal, but still,
yeah.
I mean, he made a nice play. Had to make Forsberg move on that, and he got kind of tied up. He got handcuffed with his glove hand, and it fell behind him. But I think that definitely Drysdale has absolutely been better offensively of late. There's no doubt about it.
And it's funny. It's because of what Brad Shaw talked about with us at the Carnival about Drysdale, about how he wants him to be more active in the offensive. In the offensive end of the ice.
Yep.
Because that's why he's here. That's why he's in the NHL. He's never going to be a guy that's going to be a shutdown defenseman.
No.
Right? So that's what's going to make him a better player. And when you're doing that, that's got to boost confidence.
It does, and it takes away your ability to have to make defensive plays all the time if you make good offensive plays with the puck. That's how you offset it with a guy like Drysdale. But it's got to come with quick decision-making defensively. Doesn't have to be a stalwart back there because of the way he plays the game, but he's got to make quick puck plays and then jump up the ice like he's done.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's 3-2 Ottawa. Rodrigo Abels with the other goal. 4th line grinding out a goal. Jacob Pelletier picking up an assist on that one.
Cam York, too.
Cam York made a nice play on that.
Yeah,
very decisive play.
Yep, very nice play, side of the net. That's where Abels was able to get the quick shot off short side. It was probably a leaky goal, but nonetheless, it was a great shift leading up to that with Delorier, Peltier, and Abels. The fourth line really had the puck in there for about a minute and a half. The Ottawa Senators could not get it back, and as the hard work paid off, the Flyers ended up scoring a goal. And that's why it's deflating to let that third goal in, because the Flyers have worked so hard to stay in this game.
Right.
And even take the lead when it was there, an opportunity to, and it just didn't happen. That's why you got to make those saves. It's so deflating going into the locker room when you feel like you played a pretty good game and your goalies let you down.
Well, Andrew.
Yes. Hello.
With that said, it's that time.
It is about that time.
For intern Andrew trivia.
Down an instrument again.
Yeah, but I don't think it's good to, as a theater guy.
Yes.
Right?
You are a theater guy.
As a theater guy.
Just letting you guys know, too, my daughter and Will heard our first intermission, and they thought that was great. I don't know how often they listen, so they did.
Really?
So, yeah, we have the new offensive lineman for the Vikings
Congrats,
listening to
Will
Snow
Fries.
the goalie.
Congrats.
If they're still listening. But,
Yeah.
it was pretty cool they did. So
That's
thanks,
awesome.
Thanks for that shout-out, Ed.
Yeah, no problem. I will say this, as a theater guy. When you have an orchestra or a pit band,
Yes.
when there's an instrument missing, it's noticeable. And so, therefore, I think
You're just going to punt?
in honor of Russ and his ability to hit that higher note with whatever fake instrument he plays,
The flugelhorn?
the flugelhorn, the Russ flugelhorn, we'll lead into intern Andrew trivia with silence.
Okay.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you.
Yes.
That was
There we go.
beautiful. Silence was bliss.
Yes.
So, Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators are in town. A couple years ago, Brady Tkachuk was named the captain of the Senators. He's the first American player in Senators history to be named the captain.
Oh.
Last year, Quinn Hughes was named the captain of the Canucks. He's the first American captain in Canucks history. And now this year, Austin Matthews is named the captain of the Maple Leafs. He's the first American captain in Maple Leafs history. This is the first time in NHL history that 3 different Canadian teams have had American captains. There are only 2 other stretches in NHL history where there were 2. There were more than one, so there were 2 Canadian teams with American captains. One was a 2-year stretch in 2016 through 2018. The other was in just one season in 1981. Can you name who those captains were?
So American captains of Canadian teams.
Yes.
No, Daryl Sittler was Canadian, so no.
So 81. Who was the captain of Quebec back then?
I mean, I'm just thinking the guys on the team. Michel Goulet, the Stastnys.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Was Dale Hunter? No. Dale Hunter was.
Maybe he's not American.
He might have been, but I'm saying you need to name when it was overlapping with another American guy.
No,
like,
but you want both of the American captains,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what you're asking for.
Yeah.
And they were in the 80s.
Yeah.
one was in 1981, and the other one was 2016 through 2018. So I'm saying there's like random ones that are like Craig Conroy was the captain for the Flames for one season, but there was no overlap at that point.
Right.
I had to make this one really hard.
So more recently, wasn't Blake Wheeler captain of Winnipeg?
That is one.
Oh, yeah.
Who was overlapped for 2 years with another.
That's where I'm having a hard time with.
Of a Canadian team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of who the captains were in recent years. For Canadian
Edmonton,
teams.
I'm thinking.
And so it can't be the 3 teams you just mentioned,
No.
right? Because Ottawa, this is the first time.
Yeah.
Toronto and Vancouver.
So that should narrow it down
So
for
that
us.
should narrow it down. We've already said Winnipeg, so it's got to be Montreal, Calgary, or who am I forgetting?
Vancouver? No.
No, we said Vancouver or Edmonton. Montreal, Calgary, or Edmonton.
I'm thinking I can't imagine it's Montreal.
No,
We should
probably.
start imagining that.
It was Montreal?
Yeah.
American captain of Montreal within the last 7-8 years?
Max Pacioretty?
It's Pacioretty.
Wow.
81 is going to be a really tough pull for you. Do you want the teams?
Was Quebec one of them?
No.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Give me the
The
teams.
Oilers and the Jets. The old Winnipeg Jets.
The old Winnipeg Jets.
Had an American captain in the 80s.
In 81. Holy smokes.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know that.
My question the other day was
I could look
super
and I won't
e-
yell it out, so.
Question the other day was super easy, so I had to
That's fair.
I had to get a
That's
stunky
good.
one.
That's good. I'm trying to think of who Edmonton's captain could have been back then.
I'll tell you this, he was the captain before Gretzky.
Yeah. That's tough.
That is really tough. An American captain for Edmonton before Gretzky. Wow.
Just got to remember, they came into the NHL in '79.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both those teams did in '79. So this is like their third year in the NHL. Who were the captains of those teams?
You got me.
So the Oiler was Lee Fogelin.
Oh,
Okay.
all right. I kind of remember him when he
I
played
remember
with
Lee Fogelin a little bit.
Buffalo, right?
Yeah. No, that was Fatiu. Or not Fatiu, Foligno.
Oh, Foligno.
Foligno used to do that crazy jump there.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And then that same year, this guy was only the captain for 1 year. Dave Christian.
Dave Christian of Winnipeg.
U.S. Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
1980.
1980.
And that
Yeah.
was Winnipeg?
Yes.
Yeah.
And his nephew, I don't know if you know this, is Brock Nelson.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
How about that? I didn't know that either.
Dave Christian's nephew is Brock Nelson.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. That's tough trivia.
I
right
did.
there.
I did a lot of research after work today to make sure I got all that right.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
That's a great trivia.
And I've heard of both players. It's not like I've never heard of them. So I mean, it's that's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just.
It is crazy to think, though, that those are the only 2 times that there's been more than one Canadian team with an American captain.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Americans didn't really start. Like 1980 kind of vaulted American hockey
It
forward,
did.
right? I mean, that's why all the American players kind of came.
Are you
after
aware
that.
of the Miracle on Ice, Andrew?
1980, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good movie.
Some people aren't.
Really?
I ask people that, and then they're like, I'm not familiar with it. I'm like, how can you not be?
I mean, given my track record, that sounds like something that I wouldn't know, but I do.
Well, you knew about the 2-line pass. We tried that. I tried you on that.
That's right. Yeah, you thought that I wouldn't know what the 2-line
I
pass
did.
was.
I tried you on
Well,
that.
the funny thing is, I know what it is because I think I mentioned this before. That my first NHL video game as a kid was NHL 2004, and that was still a rule then, and it got called in that game, and I didn't know why, and I used to get so frustrated. They kept whistling "play dead," and I didn't understand what was happening.
Yes.
Yeah. But I used to dangle people with Bundy in that game.
With Bundy.
Yeah, I was just ripping top cheese with your with your slap shot.
He's a very good EA player.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Was that back when you were playing with yourself?
I go home and play with myself every day. EA Sports 96.
Oh, that's
And yes, you can say that.
Yes, you can. You
Yeah,
played-
absolutely.
You are one of the few people who can say that.
Yes.
Yes, one of the few. Oh man, that's great. That's great. Good trivia. Good
Thank
trivia,
you.
Andrew. Yeah. All right, well, we got about 4 minutes to go before the start of this third period. And it's only customary, I think, Andrew, that you ask Bundy the Russ question.
Yes. How important in the first 5 minutes?
Well, they're important from a standpoint that, Ottawa took that lead late in the second period on that bad goal, but the Flyers have played a good hockey game. They've not been bad at all in this hockey game. They've just been unfortunate. A couple goals that they'd probably like to see back, but the way they're playing offensively, they're cycling the puck, they're hanging on to the puck, they're going to the middle of the net. They're doing all the things that I want to see this team do, but they got to do it for one more period and dig out of one more hole again. So be a little bit harder, but Ottawa playing their back-to-back right here. If I'm the Flyers, get pucks in and establish a forecheck early. First 5 minutes, get on the forecheck, and my God, stop giving up all these breakaways.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it really seemed they tried it. Ottawa tried it like once or twice in the first period without success. But second period, it was like constant that they were doing it. So I got to imagine that that's the conversation that went on in the locker room between the second and third period.
Yes, to clean things up on both sides of the aisle. Ottawa's probably telling their team the same thing. Be careful. Watch a guy like Mishkov this period. He's definitely a guy who's going to be a sleeper. I have Mishkov. If he's going to score a goal, I think it's going to be him who's going to tie this game.
Okay. When you were playing, do you remember, when you're in the back end of a back-to-back and you're in the third period of that second game, do you remember feeling it in the legs at all? Or
Sure.
Just in the adrenaline?
Yeah, absolutely. You feel it. I mean, you got to keep your shift short. You got to make sure you're doing all the right things and get off the ice after 30 or 40 seconds. But, yeah, I mean, the way that these teams have been playing of late, there's been so many hockey. Both teams are playing in 3 games in 4 nights. The Flyers did it differently than Ottawa. They played 2 on the weekend and had yesterday off, but Ottawa played on the weekend, and they played last night and tonight.
And the Flyers haven't had to travel either.
They haven't had to travel, and that's a pain in the butt flight coming in from Ottawa. You got to go through customs, and it takes a little bit of time. So, The advantage would be to the Flyers this period, especially playing against the fatigued Ottawa team from last night. But you can't give up any softies. If you're going to come back in this game, you crawl your way and claw your way back into it. But you've got to be a lot better, and you can't give up softies.
Yeah, whichever goalie plays better this period is going to win the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? And I also think it's next goal wins.
I agree. Next goal wins this hockey game.
Right?
Wow. Yeah.
That's where I'm kind of at on this. So
Ottawa can be had. They're not. I mean, they're in the playoffs. They're the top wild card team. But man, I'll tell you what. If Ottawa plays like this in the playoffs, they won't be around longer than 4 or 5 games.
I don't know that anyone expects them to, anyways.
Well, they're there, and they'll expect themselves to do something. But if they can't play like this or play like they did in the second period last night.
Could you imagine this team in a first-round playoff against Florida?
No.
Or Washington?
No, Washington.
Well, if they finish as the top wild card, you're probably getting the Atlantic Division winner.
Right.
Because Washington's got the best record in the conference.
Right, yeah. But, I mean, they could easily drop to the second wild card.
Sure, they could. But like this team against Florida, Toronto, Tampa, or Washington is they're an easy out.
I agree. I think
Easy
Ottawa's a super easy out.
Yeah.
Columbus is a better team than Ottawa.
I agree.
Yeah.
They play a harder game.
Do you think maybe the Rangers can catch at the Senators?
Yeah,
they're
the Rangers
close.
are in Winnipeg tonight. They're tied 1-1 right now.
Yeah. They got that game on over there.
Oh, do they?
Or is that that's Columbus over there? Columbus is playing
The Devils.
New Jersey tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think the Devils just scored, as a matter of fact.
It was 4-2 Devils. Now it might be 5-2.
It might be 5-2 now.
So do you think the Flyers were the Devils get right game?
Yeah, that could well be.
We set them in the right direction?
Yeah, 5-2 Devils now.
Yeah, 5-2, yeah.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, we have 30 seconds before the puck drop. We will see you on the post-game show. Intern Andrew, Bundy, and I. Probably then 2 to start as I finish up my AP story. But I will jump in and we'll wrap up this 5th home game of the 7 and 11 nights.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, yeah. It flies.
We got to get Anthony on that plane tomorrow, so it'll be a quick post game tonight.
Yes, it will be a quick post game. Thank you very much. We'll see you after the game.
Well, you know what? Maybe the real hockey game was the friendships that we made along the way.
It may have been.
This was an ugly one again. This is the Press Row Show, the number one rated pregame and intermission and postgame show.
The Ottawa Senators had 2 shots on goal in the third period.
Is that right?
Both were goals.
Both were goals.
Oh, that was good. So Fedotov had the same amount of saves in the third period as I did.
Well,
Yeah.
the one was not his. It was empty net, right?
Empty net was not his. And the turnover one, it was a snipe by Dylan Cousins. You want to make the save, but I'm not going to put that on the goaltender.
No.
That was a hell of a snipe, but it was a bad turnover right in the middle of the hash marks, and guy's goal scorer is going to score sometimes from there.
Well, we mentioned earlier that Cousins has scored a point in every game that he's played with the Senators so far. So, you're already seeing immediate paid dividends for Ottawa in that trade.
They are. They got that big goal. It was the insurance goal, the 4th goal. See you, everybody.
It's two nights in a row now Dylan Cousins has scored for the Senators.
Yep, that is paying dividends. When you make a trade and you get a guy to put a couple goals on the board for you, that'll absolutely help your cause.
And that, by the way, the goal from Brady Tkachuk in the first period, I forgot to say it. It was his 400th career point. So congratulations to Brady Tkachuk. He's just setting all kinds of milestones tonight against the Flyers, which is fantastic. The one thing I will say was we talked about a little bit on Sunday about Michkov only having 13 minutes of ice time. This was the first game for Michkov since the opener of this 7-game homestand that he's gotten to 20 minutes of ice time. He got 20 tonight, so he was out there a lot more in this game than he has been in the previous couple of games. And it was a game that he attempted a Michigan goal, so I guess Torts wasn't that mad at him. Do you think that he played well tonight or no?
I thought he had a good game.
Yeah.
I think he had a good. I think Mishkov had a pretty good game. I think Mishkov had a good game. I think Drysdale had a good game.
But Coots played well.
Coots, that whole line actually was okay. Fourth line gave him a solid effort when they were out on the ice. It was just mistakes that ended up costing them in this game. And, the 2 goals that we talked about, the third Ottawa goal and then the turnover on Cousins' goal, which was, I think, Ryan Poehling just mishandling a pass. Those 2 plays really killed the Flyers tonight. Otherwise, it's a pretty even game. Yeah,
it was. It was a very balanced game tonight. The shots were pretty much even. Just a couple of those goals can't go in. That's the difference. The third goal, if the third goal doesn't go in, you're going into the third period most likely tied at 2.
Yeah.
And then the approach is different to how you manufacture the third period rather than chasing a goal. That goal, that's a backbreaker. That would be a backbreaker. If you're in the playoffs and that goal goes in, that's a killer. Like if you're Ottawa and that goal goes in, man, that's devastating. And they're killers.
You did mention the Tippett, Couturier, Michkov line. The Flyers actually, I thought, got off to a pretty decent start in the third period. They were buzzing.
Yep.
Forster had a breakaway right out of the gate, didn't score. And then that line had a 3-on-1 that I'm still not entirely sure how they didn't convert there. I didn't really get a great look at it. I don't know if did Couturier get it off cleanly or no?
I think he kind of off the heel of his stick a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a really nice pass across the slot. And I think it kind of off the heel of his stick. It didn't really kind of go even on goal. I think he just kind of missed it a little bit.
Oh, so Forsberg didn't even save it?
Yeah, I don't think Forsberg got to that one.
I'm not sure he got to that one. He made it. There was a couple scrambles late when the Flyers had the 6-on-5.
Yeah.
And there was a couple plays in front where it looked like it got blocked, but there was a big cluster going on in front. I thought the Flyers were going to be able to get one there, but they did not.
This thought did occur to me, and I want to ask your opinion on it because I'm not entirely sure what the answer is here. Is the decision by a coach when to pull the goalie, does that just vary from game to game?
Yeah.
And the reason I ask is because the other night, I can't remember which game it was, but it was the same situation where the Flyers are down by 2, and whoever the team was, again, I can't remember, took a penalty. So the Flyers are going to be setting up a power play in the zone with about 3 minutes left, and they didn't start with the goalie. They could have had a 6-on-4 right there, and Torts didn't pull the goalie until like a minute later. I'm curious now why tonight he pulled the goalie with 3.5 minutes left.
Well, because they were down 2, and he probably felt the momentum wasn't going his way, so you need to get that guy out as quick as possible to give your team a chance to score 2 goals, not just 1. You got to score 2 and not give 1 up. It used to be traditional when you were down a goal to pull the goalie with about a minute left.
I remember that, yeah.
It used to be like, and now you're seeing guys pull goalies with 2.5, 3 minutes left sometimes. I think it just depends on the flow of the game and what the coach thinks that he's seen during the game for chances and how much time you need to set up what your good play is on a man advantage type of situation.
Do you remember who the first coach was to start doing that with regularity?
I was just going to say that. I think it's Patrick Waugh.
No.
Pulling
No?
the goalie, you mean earlier?
Pulling the goalie early.
Was it Lavi?
Before Lavi?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no, wait. No, after Lavi.
Sorry, in the league or on the Flyers?
Well, it was in the league and on the Flyers. Chief.
Oh, yeah. Chief used to pull the goalie early, yeah.
He was Chief. I remember doing a whole story about it with him.
It's all a feeling.
Why he felt that it was better to do it earlier.
Because I remember the Avalanche. They do it sometimes with like 3.5 minutes left and only down by 1.
Yeah, no, Chief was kind of like the trailblazer there. Because it was at a time when guys were still waiting till the last minute, and Chief was going 3 minutes left in the period, and his philosophy was you put more pressure on them to make a mistake in their own end while they're, and force them to defend sooner, because now, coaches like to just throw out their best defensive line for that last minute. Now you're forcing them to make a decision. When are you putting your best defensive line out there? Are you going to do it with 3 minutes ago when I pull my goalie? Or are you going to, wait and hold it till 1 minute left, and then you might find a time when you have an offensive advantage against a line that, doesn't defend as well, because the best defensive players can't be on the ice for the entirety of the 3 minutes. That was Chiefs' philosophy.
Yeah, and that's a good philosophy. You can't keep them all. You can't keep your best 5 players out there for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So at some point you're gonna have to make a change. The same thing goes for your best 6 offensive players too. They can't stay out there the whole time either.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get the thing, but I do like it earlier. I think like 2.5 minutes is a good time to pull the goalie when it's perfectly safe to do it. Get the guy out and then rush up the ice together.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
We do have to mention this Flyers purgatory. We gotta keep picking the Flyers till they win. Noble sacrifice for me, son. I'm just doing my part.
You're doing your part?
I'm too prideful and too committed to this now that I'm not going to go back on my word. I'm going to keep picking them until they win.
Well, you've been caught in the standings.
Yeah, but I said the other day I'm prepared to
Yeah.
go down with the ship.
Yeah, well, you're going down with the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, poorly. Anyway, I know we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly tonight because I have a very early flight to
Anthony's got a
water.
bird at 6 a.m. A 6 a.m. takeoff.
Yeah.
Well, because of that, there's only one more thing we have to do.
Yeah, you got to do your tankety thing.
The Rush Joy Memorial NHL Tankathon Simulator. All right, let's see how this goes.
Here we go.
And they dropped to 8th. There's just nothing going right tonight.
Nothing going right in the simulator.
All right, are you guys good?
We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, so we're back. Well, your homestand is over.
My homestand is over.
Your watch has ended.
You two have 2 more games of this treat to enjoy. I'm going to go watch exhibition baseball and probably enjoy myself a little bit more.
That sounds fun. All right, so
That sounds
we're
like fun.
Thursday against the Lightning are here Thursday, right?
Lightning Thursday, Hurricane Saturday.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
I'll see you Thursday, Andrew.
Yes, I'll see you. And Russ is back in theory. I think he'll be back, right?
Russ will be back in time for the game.
All
If
right,
not,
that's
you
good.
and me will make magic together.
That's oh boy. we're gonna be talking about Penn State football the whole time again.
Maybe
That's
we
right.
should set up a TV with NHL 96.
Yeah, just hang out and play a little hockey.
That's right.
It'll be better than what's going on behind us.
That's right. Fair.
All right, thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you again in 48 hours. Flyers versus Lightning. Talk to you then.